Started. We are talking about the Pythagorean theorem, and yesterday we said that this a squared and b squared represented what?
X squared plus y squared.
In a what?
A right.
Right triangle. And a lot of people forget that. A squared plus b squared is leg, and this is a leg squared, plus the leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared if you are given a right triangle. So in problem number 80, it says A is 14, C is 50, find B. What I would advise you to do, especially if you think I'm not good in math, write down the formula. A squared plus B squared is C squared. Plug in what you know. 14 squared plus B squared equals 50 squared. How do you solve for B? How do I get rid of a positive number? I don't have to know what that number is to write it as a subtraction 14 squared. B squared equals 50 squared minus 14 squared. Now, my handy dandy calculator, I'm going to write 50 squared minus 14 squared, not inverse, in my calculator. And I'm going to push enter. And for the first time, I'm going to actually write down a number. So 2304. How do I undo the square root? Square. Yes. You take the square root to undo a square, and the handy dandy calculator says it's 48. So B is 48. Moving right along. This, by the way, says 70 on your note-taking guide, and this is actually problem number 84. I had an issue when I uploaded the note-taking guide into Docs. I didn't save it as a PDF first. Everything changed. Everything changed. All right, so in this one we are finding A, but it is problem number 84 on page 10. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. What happens with the square root and the square? They are inverses of each other. A squared plus 7 equals 11. How do I solve for A squared? Subtract 7 from both sides. In the event that you don't know what 11 minus 7 is, you could type that into your calculator. And how do you undo a square? And I will tell you, this is where I have issues with pre-cal. What is the square root of A squared? By definition, it is the absolute value of A. Okay, now typically in the classes that you've had so far, and because we are talking about the legs of a triangle, A cannot be negative. Why? You can't have a negative length. So a lot of the times you're fine just dealing with it. Okay, in real world scenarios, it's the positive value. If you're solving any other things, as we're going to get to later on, you need to be careful. And again, this is not problem number 72. This is problem number 87.
Is that over your homework? No, 87. I think it's 83.
All right. We have to, A, find the distance and midpoint between 2 points. The distance formula is the x sub 2 minus x sub 1 quantity squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 quantity squared. And you take the square root of that. You need to have this distance formula memorized for the test. I will not give you formulas. The midpoint formula is x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2 because midpoint is the average. You add the two together and divide by 2. And you write it as a point. Okay? All right, so distance. Which one is x sub 1? Which one is x sub 2? It does not matter. You make an executive decision. Pick your point. Which one do you want to be the first one? Which one do you want to be the second one? All right, so which one is your x1, y1?
6 negative 2 is this
All right, so I'm going to let this one be my first one then, and this one is going to be my second one. Those of you who have those switched, work it out the way you did it. You can get the same answer. All right, so here we go. I'm going to plug it in. X sub 2 is a negative 7 minus 6 quantity squared plus 4 minus a negative 2 quantity squared. When you have this written, type it into your calculator all at the same time. Don't waste your time doing it in two separate steps. The square root, parenthesis, negative 7 minus 6, close parenthesis squared, plus 4 minus a negative 2, quantity squared, enter. Everybody good? If they do not tell you what to round to, or if it's an exact answer, round to the nearest tenth. So if they say exact answer, how is that different from rounding? $14.3 is rounding. What if I said, nope, you have to give me an exact answer? What makes this a decimal? The square root. So if you go back and you delete out that square root, then the exact answer would be the square root of 205. Any questions or problems with that? Exact means not a decimal. Now, if it was the square root of 49 and you wrote down a 9, that's an exact answer.
How do you go back and leave the square root?
Okay, there's two ways you can do this. One, you can arrow back and highlight what you want if it's up, 2 or 3 steps ahead. The other one, if it's just happened, you can just push enter. So I've got this one. If I just push enter again, it brings it back up. Second, enter. And then you can arrow over what you want to get rid of instead of having to type the whole thing in. Delete is the button. 2 buttons to the right of mine's a blue button. And then I just delete and it goes away. All right, so now midpoint. X sub 1, I'm going to use my same x value plus my same x2 divided by 2, negative 2 plus a 4 divided by 2. And this is a midpoint, which means it needs to be written as an ordered pair. 6 plus a negative 7 divided by 2. Negative 2 plus 4 divided by 2. And there's my midpoint. And I just typed it in my calculator. And yesterday we talked about you could type it all in together. Just use the green alpha button, remember? Make it look like a fraction. 6 plus negative 7 over 2. How did I get 6.5?
That's what I want to know. Oh,
And
I was
none
really-
of you got a bonus point because none of you caught that mistake.
Okay, I wasn't gonna say it. I was like, Let me type that in real fast.
6 plus 7 is 13. And half of 13 is, I forgot the negative when I typed it in. Yeah. All right. And we turn the page and we notice that we're at lesson 2. We are